What's up, everybody? It's Brandon from Box Office Banner and Cult Flick Symposium, and I, of course, am back with another review. This one will be on The Boogeyman. Okay, I won't do that anymore. This movie, though, how do we feel about it? I gotta tell you, first trailer drop for this, it's got a little bit of clout because it's based off of something that Stephen King did. That's something, right? But how many bad Stephen King adaptations have there been, let alone more recent ones? And watching the trailer, I just was not that interested. But I think they dropped the second trailer, and my interest, kind of it crept up a little bit. It started to creep more into the, okay, maybe I am a little more interested in this. And the main reason I think I wasn't that interested in it is it seems like the same type of PG-13 horror movie that's been done a million times. But again, that trailer started to reel me in a little more. But what was the main thing that reeled me in? If you follow this channel, that is, I'm a big Yellow Jackets fan. Sophie Thatcher is at the lead. So even if I got to fall on a landmine for her, I definitely want to see how she does as the lead in this movie. Because to my knowledge, I've never seen her as the lead in anything else. If she has been, please hit me to that. Or I could just Google it. I probably will do that now. But this is the first time I've seen her in a leading lady role. I did not even know who she was until Yellow Jackets. And oh my God, she's amazing in the show. Love her as young Nat. Every time I say that, just think a rap name. For the people that don't know, Natalie. And there's young and older characters, so it equates to young Nat. So yeah, not as weird as it sounds if you've never seen Yellow Jackets. But her is the lead. In a PG-13 horror movie, I feel like that's been done a bunch of times, with a trailer that, as I watched it multiple times, reeled me in. And then by the time, let's say I was 2 days out from seeing this movie, out of nowhere, I was hyped as fuck. I talked myself into it. I was like, God, let's do this. Got super stoked. And I shouldn't have. This actually has a positive score on Rotten Tomatoes. I thought it was going to be like run of the mill, which kind of did help it a little bit. That amped it up a little bit. But once again, I shouldn't have. Because while this movie isn't bottom of the barrel trash, like we've seen so many PG-13 horror movies in this vein, it is still so many of these PG-13 horror movies. Because, there's nothing wrong with this movie. Let me just come out and say that. There's a lot worse you can do with PG-13 horror movies. But at the same time, nothing is exceptional. It's just riding this guideline of just good enough the whole way. I think the overall idea, so I guess what Stephen King did, which, how great is that fucking guy, is what really sells it here. But do they really capitalize on the idea fully? Not really to me. And it's weird because there's a lot of hate-love going on here. I think this movie is really smart in the way that it plays with the character's mind. It keeps the villain in the dark. You don't really, maybe towards the end you kind of do. You really do. But you don't really ever get that great money shot of it. It's that Jaws effect, where you don't see the shark until you finally see the shark. Too many movies spill all their marbles right away, and they're like, yeah, that's right. That's what they want to see. They want to see the monster. No, that might be what your younger audience thinks they want to see, but they want to mess with your mind, man. That's what they really want deep down. Maybe some people like the more in-your-face style. But for the most part, in order to lock in that suspense and build up the scares, you have to play with the audience's mind, and play with the mind it did. And it had a solid opening. I really like the opening. It's short and sweet. Nothing really sweet about it, actually, but the saying, short and sweet. And from that moment on, it kind of keeps foot on the pedal, which is good. Very good. The movie's got a good pace. And it does that all while keeping the monster in the dark, which is good. All while also building a story to try to make us care about the characters. It's actually trying to take time in that regard. So all these things are really good. But again, it doesn't do any of these things exceptional. Because while they do build on the characters, yet and still, the characters feel formulaic. amongst, the same type of plot line, storylines I feel like I've seen in so many of these movies. And, there's a certain feel to the PG-13 horror movie. Maybe it's the motherfuckers not getting their heads chopped off. I don't know what it is, but there's a certain vibe that's initiated in these kinds of movies that just is really ingrained in this movie that I don't want to feel that. Ugh. Bring that R rating feeling. And then, of course, we can talk about The Darkness, how that was, while that was good, yes, it was good, it also had a negative effect too, because a lot of the times I'm watching this movie, it's a fine line to walk because, you want to keep your monster in the dark, you want to keep him out of sight, but you also want to tell what's going on. Now, I don't know if maybe it was my theater. Every once in a while, I got to throw out that little, outlier. Maybe there's an asterisk here in the review, but like I feel like a lot of times when shit was going down, like yes, I want to not be able to necessarily see the creature. Like I want him to kind of be in the dark, like with certain lighting that's used. But I also want to be able to tell what's going on. Now, you might be like, how's that work? They've done it many times, people. It does work. In this movie, I feel like too many times I was looking at the screen and I was just like, I can't tell what the fuck's going on. And it's like, yeah, that's awesome that I can't really see the creature. I'm just getting like outlines and quick flashes, enough to like, make up my own version of this monster in my head. Very well, masterfully done type of approach. But in doing that, it seemed like the darkness of the rest of the movie in those scenes took over. Similar to when you're watching a movie and you might have that one dumbass friend. It's like, that can't be dark. Look at it, looks lit up in there. And you're just like, bro, that's because as an audience, we have to see what the fuck's going on. Obviously, it's darker in the movie, but if they just had it pitch black like it wasn't there, we'd be looking at a pitch black screen. No doy. This movie, it feels like, it's going to please your friend because it's going to be dark as fuck. And again, I'm worried that maybe, just maybe, and I'm hoping actually, so maybe I give it a rewatch where I'm finally like, you know what, let me give this again, that it will be better lighting, but good idea with the, darkness around the monster, not bringing him all the way to the forefront where all the cat's out of the bag right away. But all those scenes, I also couldn't really make out what's going on. I mean, you got an idea, but it's kind of like similar to, I guess, what I'd explain, like when you're watching a great fight scene and it's shaky cam. It's like, okay, yeah, I got an idea, but I wanted to see the wide shot in that land. Tough one to balance, but while you hid the monster, you also sacrifice that. At least that's what it felt like to me. As far as these characters, though, I honestly did not enjoy them as much as I wanted to. Don't get me wrong. There's nothing you're going to scoff at. The dad was average to me. He didn't do anything for me. The youngest was good, and Sophie Thatcher was good. And there's a part of me that thinks maybe Sophie was reeled in a little too much. I mean, there wasn't necessarily anything that was too dramatic. And maybe like I'm going too deep into like how I feel her character is on Yellow Jackets. Who the fuck knows, right? Maybe there's some weird biases here because going into this movie, I really wanted her to just have that, just like, oh my God, Sophie pulled off epic Final Girl. And I didn't want to walk away just being like, Sophie was good. I wanted to be like, Sophie Thatcher just killed that shit. It goes beyond Yellow Jackets. Holy shit. And I didn't get that. And there was an element of that where, as I was saying, like where I don't know if she was reined in. It felt like she just did not do, it didn't feel like she was bombing. It felt like the source material, while good, again, every bit of it, while good, was not acted upon exceptionally. And I think that also hurts this movie for me, is because it looks like on the surface as a PG-13 horror movie that should be able to leap that hurdle that so many PG-13 horror movies achieve, because so many, true to the wool horror fans like, why make it PG-13? It's a movie about a monster coming out and killing kids and murder. It should be R. And then the studios are like, yeah, but more people will go see if it's PG-13. It irks most true to the wool horror fans. Other horror fans don't care, but most, it seems like it does. And this movie felt like it had that chance. But given it did not ever raise that bar, it stayed kind of at the bar to me. And it found a way to, like, while do these things good, also that bar is what we've seen in every other PG-13 horror movie. It just didn't have lows like these other crappy PG-13 horror movies. It's like it took the good parts of those movies. And that's not good enough for me in this film. It made it feel kind of like, I don't know, like just not just rinse and repeat, but more of a struggle for me to accept because I see what was on the table, especially being somebody knowing who Sophie Thatcher is. I don't know if the rest of the world knows how good she is yet and what they had with this movie. And for them to just churn out like I mean, not memorable, but it was all right, especially with this premise. It was really, really frustrating for me. And the ending and the design of the monster, it's fine, it's okay, but it's CGI. And how good is CGI? It's nothing special. It's another thing I don't know if you know it, horror fans really gripe on. The design is all right, but again, I think this is even an execution thing because when you see it in CGI and you finally do see it, you're like, oh, this is a PG-13 horror monster. And when I'm left at the end of a PG-13 horror movie and the thing I'm thinking about, I guess the most is like, oh, this is that formulaic PG-13 horror vibe when I walk out of the theater. That's not good. When I walk out of A Quiet Place and I'm like, damn, what a stamp. Didn't even think about PGs. I never think of that. And that's not to say it has to be A Quiet Place. That they're like, oh, you're comparing it to that? No. But given what is given here, they could have done so much more. And I think that lowers the score a little bit. I want to give it a good rating, but I can't do it. I'm going to give this a 5.5 out of 10. And as I always say, much like I rated 65, it's probably a little better than what I gave it. But when you have the expectations there, where you really think the pieces are there and it doesn't nail, in comparison to other PG-13 horror movies, where I just go in and I'm like, oh, I lay to bed, but I expect it to, it hurts a little more, and I rate on a subjective scale, so I got to give it a 5.5 out of 10. Not a travesty. I'm not mad I watched it, but it's very frustrating. There's good moments, people. Don't get me wrong. Great sound design. Don't necessarily skimp out on it because of this review. I'm understanding that some people are liking it. Obviously, some will, some won't. That's any movie. Give it a shot. But for me, this is what it was. Like, share, subscribe, comment. That's the main thing. I sound all aggressive now. Anyways, love you guys. Sophie, I still love you. I still think you did good. And I still think overall, objectively, this is a good movie. But guess what, guys? I didn't want just a bottom-of-the-barrel good PG-13 horror movie. I thought this one could have been a little upper echelon. So, average territory for me for that reason. Peace.